Welcome back to another episode of the Wood Fired Podcast. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with someone who's inspired not only myself, but thousands of other wood-fired oven owners through his incredible and unique YouTube videos. Clive, also known as the Wood-Fired Oven Chef on YouTube, is joining us today to share a bit about his journey and his passion for wood-fired oven cooking. Clive, thank you for being here and welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad to be here, Tony. Very nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. We've been talking a lot about doing this, so I'm glad we could finally make it happen. Thank you for making the time, and I'm really excited. And I know a lot of my customers and people that follow us are going to be really excited about this. So thank you again. Let's jump right in. You've been making these phenomenal wood-fired oven cooking videos on YouTube for about 5 or 6 years. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're at almost 100,000. So you're close
almost
to 100,000.
Yes.
That's exciting. Okay, cool. Yeah. And obviously millions of views to go with that. I think 46 episodes, 46, 47?
Yeah,
somewhere around there. Somewhere around. You're losing count. Yeah, you're losing count. Let's see. 42. Sorry, 42.
Okay, 42, yeah.
So I'm
43 this weekend, but I'll see.
Exciting. I wonder if, okay, that's exciting. So my first question I wanted to ask was, what was the initial motivation for you to start this channel? And then also I'd love to know how it's evolved from whatever initially you imagined in your head you were doing and what you wanted to achieve and how that's changed. But what was to start, I guess, the initial goal with what you were doing?
So I've had a wood oven, I think, for about 20 years. And I would use it, on and off. And I love cooking with fire. There's something very, intuitive about cooking with fire.
Agree.
And I had this idea for a while that I was kind of new to YouTube, and I was trying to find videos about how to use the wood oven because I thought I have this experience I want to I could share. Like, we'll see what videos are available, and there are some videos, and I think there's a lot of people out there with really great intentions who want to convey the knowledge that they have about wood ovens. But I felt like I could do something that had a certain quality level to it. My background is in graphic design, and I work across both graphics and audiovisual and online work. And I thought I could take all that knowledge and apply it to making videos, high quality videos. And I actually had a friend of mine who was a very successful commercial director, and I asked if he would help me make these videos. He said, yeah, absolutely, he would. And my intention in the beginning was just to make 4 videos. One, an introduction to the wood-fired oven, a video about fuel, a video about tools, and a video about how to light up and use a wood oven. And that was just those 4 that I was going to do. And we did those 4 together, and I thought they turned out pretty good. I mean,
they hold up for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the first he was instrumental in. So I was just looking at. I couldn't remember the last time the first episode I think has had 1.3 million views. So I never in my wildest imagination imagined that it would get that many. And then I thought, well, we stopped at those 4, and then I thought, well, why stop there? So I thought, well, maybe I'll make some cooking videos as well. So, and then once you do one, and I started with steak, which seems to be one of the most the most popular things to do in the oven are either pizza or steak. Pizza or steak,
I agree.
Yeah, and it just kind of grew from there, and I've set the standard very high. I want them to be. I don't want to be just cooking videos. I want them to be certain aspirational at the same time. I want to inspire people to not just cook in the wood-fired oven, but the lifestyle that goes with it, the kind of romance, I think, of using a wood-fired oven. When you have friends over and you have a wood-fired oven going, everybody gathers around the wood oven and you stand around and you drink wine and you talk and you watch food go in and out and you share stories. And I just think it's a whole, you can't do that in front of a conventional oven. So
Yeah, there's something about a wood-fired oven. You hit the nail on the head, and I think everybody who's owned one for even a little bit picks up, and even little uni ovens. It's just there's something that draws people together more so than a barbecue or a smoker would, right? And it's hard to describe what it is exactly. You kind of have to be there experiencing it. But I completely agree, and I see that too. And what you're with your videos, kind of trying to encompass the lifestyle of a wood-fired oven, and I think you do a really good job, right? I mean, most of your thumbnails, right? You've got the wine right there next to it, and the music is perfect, and just the feeling you get. I think your videos, they check so many boxes. They check all the boxes. I mean, the production quality, the quality of the recipes, how in depth you go into method, and how which is a very hard thing to convey on a pizza oven, right? I mean, the method and temperature control are a tough one, but you've done such a good job with making videos exclusive to how heat works in an oven and how to use an oven, right? Where there is no real recipe. It's just talking about technique and method. And for those who follow your videos, they can always fall back on that, right? As a cornerstone, and then, watch a video on how to cook something and they get it. And I think that's something you see, 'cause I'm sure you've read a lot of wood-fired oven books, and everyone has their different way of conveying how the oven works and how the temperature, goes. And I think the way you've done it is great. And it's, I tell every single client that buys my oven, I tell them about your channel. I say, you have to, at the very least, watch episode 1, right? And, they all continue. They all continue after that, because it's great. It's great, content. And it's, I mean, it's hard. There's definitely nobody, I think, doing anything like this on YouTube. So, I'm happy to hear another one's coming out. I'm very excited about that.
And I think, in terms of reading books, I think there's only so much you can read about something. You have to experience it to really learn. And the one book I always recommend to everybody is The Bread Builders by Daniel Wing and the legendary oven builder Alan Scott.
Alan Scott.
And there's a lot in that book about making bread, but there's also the chapters about actually building oven and people. And Alan Scott was a legendary oven builder, and I think that book is, I think, the quintessential book if you want to learn about wood oven cooking and wood oven and the theory and the science behind wood oven cooking and cooking with fire and cooking with retained heat. That's the book to start with, and then from there it's you just learn so much by experience. And I've had my share of disasters in the wood oven. I think anybody who's a wood oven, it's very easy to burn something that you haven't made before in a wood oven. So obviously I haven't put those episodes online.
But that's part of the journey, though. I mean, and the best chefs I've had the pleasure of working with, we have a lot of different chefs that will come teach classes, right? And it's crazy. All of the best chefs we've had the pleasure of working with, they all say the same thing, is that you have to burn things. You have to try things that, shouldn't work, right? And will probably not work. And, but you figure out why, right? And that's a great way to kind of cut the learning curve down a bit. It's just muscle memory, do it 100 times. I agree with that. And those are some great books. And Alan Scott, it's so interesting. Wood-fired ovens, the way that you cook on it and I cook on it and a lot of my customers cook on it, it is in this interesting space where you have pizza, right? And how to cook pizza can be done a lot of different ways. Even at high temperatures can be done a lot of different ways. You can do it in a steel oven with no thermal mass and still make really good quality pizza, right? Or you can do it in an oven like ours that has thermal mass and retains heat and has all the 3 different types of heat cooking your pizza. But then when you go into other things, you start using the oven with the heat retention, right? And lower temperature cooking. And so it is this interesting space between kind of pizza cooking and bread baking for the heat retention side. And that's why I think, the Alan Scott and Oven Builder and those types of books are a great place to start. It gives you a good foundation for understanding the concept of what it is you're doing.
Yep.
So you said you've had your oven for 20 years. I didn't realize it was that long. Are you still learning things? Are you still, or do you feel like, have you gotten to the 95% and it's just real slow, or are you still, what do you how would you describe that?
Well, each episode, I want to push two things I want to do. I want to find more interesting ways of filming, making it look great, and editing and putting and sound and putting it together. And then I want to try cooking things that you wouldn't normally think about cooking in the wood oven. And interesting, I don't mind telling you the new episode I'm doing, pork belly. I put that off for a long time. It was on the list for a long time. I just put it off because that's a dish you have to get the temperature just right. Low and slow is the way to go with pork belly. And and I was very nervous about doing it in the wood oven. I thought, but it wasn't until I started. I had this one episode about firing up the oven with smaller fires. So just getting rather than, there are a lot of videos on YouTube, and I have one as well. You create the little wooden stack, the big wooden stack inside the oven and light it, and you just put all this heat into the oven. And that's great if you're making pizza or you want to maybe cook something at a high heat like a steak, but not everything needs that kind of heat. So when I started experimenting with small fires, which I think was episode 32, and you just start with a small fire and you just put the heat that you want into the oven, into the place that you want it. And then I thought, well, now I've kind of perfected that to a certain extent. I thought, well, now I can get the oven to the right temperature I want, which is around 300 degrees, 275, 300 degrees, and then cook the pork belly for 2 hours. I think it turned out pretty good,
Hey,
but
I'm excited.
But I said I was very nervous. Like I said, I was just very nervous about it, and and like I said, you only see, it takes a while for me to set up the camera and to film and stuff like that.
I can imagine, yeah.
And then you spend all day doing something, and then you burn it, and then you have to, and then the light, and because I film outside, I'm relying on available light, so then I have to wait till the next day and then shoot it all over again, But you're right, you just learn so much about the way. I always tell people, the more you use your oven, the greater your understanding of how it performs and what it's capable of, because all ovens are different. You sell a variety of ovens that are all going to perform slightly differently in the way they retain heat, the way they handle the fire inside there, the way they will cool down and leave you residual heat to cook in as well. You just have to constantly use the oven. And then the oven, I find, almost has a certain personality to it, and fire brings that. You have the oven and you have yourself, and it's the fire that connects you and the oven together. And then you understand where you place the fire, how hot you can get it, how you can regulate the temperature using the variable heat between. If you have the fire in the back, you're going to have an amazing amount of variable heat between the fire and the oven opening, and learning to use that. When you want to get more heat, you push your dish further into the oven, and when less heat, you pull it more towards the opening. And I think those are the things that I've learned over the years about how to work with the wood oven.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely something that, the number one thing, and when someone says, I want to learn how to use it, I want to be really good, I want to master this, it's like a lot of things in life. Repetition, muscle memory, you need to be using it over and over. And you're right, there's just so many subtle cues an oven will give you that tell you things. Knowledge and control are the two things you need to get down, right? To wield an oven, right, and to use it effectively. And the knowledge side is you're absolutely right. Every oven is different, and there's a lot of things. Some are obvious, but other things you pick up after 2 years of using it, right? And you're like, oh, okay, so if I want the temperature to drop this much in this oven, I do this with the fire, or I use this type of fuel, or at this type of rate. And it does, the longer you use it, I think our ovens, right? They get better. By our, I mean yours and mine. These retain, thermal mass ovens. One example I always give people is the coolest thing that happens, in my opinion, with an oven when you get an oven, is after like year 1 or 2, that launching area at the front gets really smooth. Right, from the peels and the cast iron just going back and forth.
Yep.
And like that's I could never build that. Right, I could never like pre-make that. That's just this natural patina and thing that makes the oven yours, that makes it better. And that's an example I think that always stands out to me. I want to go back to the low temperature cooking. Okay. It's such a, well, first of all, it's, when people call me and they're interested in buying an oven and they're just started that journey, it's always a surprise that it's not always, but sometimes, a lot of times, it's a surprise that it's more than pizza, right? But not only is it more than pizza, it's more than high temp cooking, right? There's a lot of low temp, and the small fires, technique was so exciting to me and so unique because historically, as far as I know, the only way to cook things at 300 or 400 degrees, even maybe 5, is you're loading the oven, like you said, overload it with heat, right? And cook at a really high temperature. And then you wait for temperatures to drop to where you want it. Because when we're cooking in the oven, we can get it hot, and we can even get it cooler pretty quick from a control point of view at higher temperatures, right? At, 900, 700, whatever. And temperatures in ovens, it's just, where? What are you talking about? Over here at the top, down here at the bottom? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the rate of fuel you add, generally speaking, right? I want it to be 200 degrees hotter quicker. I have a log sitting at the opening getting warm, and I throw it in. It combusts immediately. I shoot up. I want it to drop down to a little bit lower temperature. I stop adding logs. But there is that threshold, right, of like active fires in the oven, at least normal size, are always going to have a baseline temperature that's pretty high, right? And then once the flame goes out, things do tend to drop. So historically, when people tell me, hey, I want to cook this thing or this thing, and they're telling me things they want to cook that are 300, 400, 500 degrees, I say, yeah, go out Friday night. I call it the weekend oven, right? Friday night, you do your high temp pizzas, steaks, whatever it may be, and then you put the door on, leave everything in, and then you come back. You've still got some great heat retention and high temperatures on Saturday for your roasting, and then even Sunday, you've got good bread baking temperatures, at least in our oven, and lower temp stuff. And it's fun, to look at it that way and to time everything, but it can definitely be an inconvenience, right? Hey, I just want to do this pork belly, right? That's what I want to do tonight, and I haven't used my oven in 3 days, so it's cold oven. Having to do that is fun, but it's not always like ideal. And so I haven't had a chance to play around with that, but I'm excited, and I'm sure we're gonna see a lot more of that in the pork belly video. I'm assuming, right? Yeah. And how you got it there.
It's interesting with pork belly. Instinctively, you would think, if I'd used the oven the night before, and I know how my oven performs. If I've done a high heat cooking the night before, I put the door on, I know the following morning it's still going to be around 450, 500 degrees, which is too hot to do pork belly.
Right.
But I could take the door off, let the oven drop to the right temperature. Yeah. Put the pork belly in, put the door on, and wait for a couple of hours. But there's nothing wrong with, the only downside I think with retained heat cooking using the door is you close the door and you can't see anything that's going on.
What's going on?
You kind of lose that connection with the food. It's behind this thick iron door. And, even with conventional ovens, at least you have a glass door you could look in at and see how things are going. So that was the other thing I wanted to do. Well, if I'm going to do pork belly, I want the experience of seeing it cook. Plus, I can't film a pork belly with the door on, so I definitely wanted to have it. And I wanted to, I gave myself 2 hours. I knew that I probably needed to rotate it a few times, 3 or 4 times during the cooking time. So pulling it in and out and changing it, moving it to different parts of the oven depending on what the temperature was. So I just think that's pretty much all I do now is start with the smaller fire, unless I know my family said they want to have a pizza night. Yeah, of course, I'm going to just put as much heat as I can into the oven. But I just find the smaller fires much more controllable at the temperature. Like you're saying, you can always throw a log on and get the temperature up pretty quickly. One thing I wanted to try was a reverse sear steak. How could I get a fire going in the oven, probably in the back of the oven, put the steak more towards the front where it's that lower 225, 250 range, get the steak up to the temperature that I think it's like 115 in the center. If I did that caveman steak with the long bone, get it to about 115 in the center, then just blast a lot of fire in the oven, and use a cast iron skillet or a cast iron tray to do that final part of the steak. So I just think a lot depends on your thermal mass, like you're saying, and how much insulation you have. Some ovens you can get up to a very high temperature, and as soon as you let the fire go out, it will drop pretty quickly. But I just know the way that my oven performs, and it does not drop quickly at all. My oven, it has a very large the way I had it built, there's a lot of insulation around it that holds that heat for a long time.
And thermal mass too, because you've got 3-inch, I think yours is. Yeah, so that's a lot. I think a lot of ours is 4.5. Ours is huge, and 3 is great. But I think there's a lot out there that are like around the 2 size, and I think it's not gonna it's gonna insulate well, right? But the heat retention, the thicker it is, I always equate it to a battery, right?
Yes.
It's people, I kind of, because one of the cool things we do on our ovens is we have 2 thermocouples that we install inside of the oven for every oven we build, and we run them through conduit, and they come out at the bottom, and you can tap into a K-type thermocouple reader. And what those 2 temperatures read, one is kind of just inside the oven, kind of in the top, and then the other one is on the outside of the brick dome, right?
Okay.
So they aren't meant to be temperature readers in the sense of what a conventional, right? Like to the degree. It's more of a reference point. But the one on the outside is great because it's measuring thermal mass. And again, this is something you will pick up after cooking for a long time in your oven. You will know when your oven is fully saturated with heat, right? And that's like a big thing, because it's like, hey, if I'm trying to retain as much heat as possible for whatever reason, I want that full saturation, full charge. But I think this is great the way we do it, because it helps with the learning curve. It helps you understand, by reading a temperature, things quicker. And so the way I equate it is the one in the oven, if you're driving in a car, right, and the oven's a car, the one in the the thermometer in the oven is telling you your speed. It's your speedometer. And then the one on the outside of the dome is your fuel tank, right? Is kind of how I equate it. Yeah. But yeah, and understanding heat, I think, is critical. So pork belly, that there was one that's perfect, because I wanted to say, the videos you make, it's incredibly unique in terms of the food you're cooking in a wood-fired oven, right? A lot of people, like you said, steak, first thing you see, like beer can chicken, veg and casserole, all fun things, all really, really great places to start for sure. But I mean, some of the things that you've done, right? Chocolate chip cookies, brioche burger buns, poached peaches, they're challenging, I'm sure. Like you're challenging yourself, I can tell, and I wanted to know, is there one like nut you haven't cracked? Like, is there one you keep going back and forth that's just like been like a struggle? Or are you pretty, I mean, when you come up with these, are you just knocking them out of the park every time? And I know there's probably, like you said, with the pork belly, but any that stand out that have just been like the one you really want to do, and you've just been...
Yeah, it reminds me, I had somebody email me recently about doing Thanksgiving dinner in the wood oven. And actually, that just sounds like so much work to me.
Oh, it is. We do it every year.
Thanksgiving is kind of stressful enough as it is with everything you need to cook. Then to be able to have to split your time between a conventional oven and a wood-fired oven, I don't know. It didn't sound very like much fun to me. But I think it's possible to do a turkey. I would probably do a spatchcock turkey. I wouldn't try and do. Maybe you have more experience than I do.
My dad does the turkey. I don't. All I know is when people ask me that, I say, "Go for it. Put another one in the home oven."
Yeah.
Yep. And then then there's no stress. But my dad's got it down. He's got it down.
That's good.
Yeah. But you're right. It is an extra layer of stress that a lot of us are probably going to pass on for Thanksgiving.
And I think cooking in the wood-fired oven should be fun.
Yes.
Yeah. And but I want to. Porchetta is one thing I want to do. I want to do a leg of lamb. Those are kind of large cuts of meat that need to be cooked. To get them just right in the center of the lamb. You just want that still to be nice and pink on the inside, but have that nice outside to it. I definitely want to try a leg of lamb. I don't know. I made a very long list of things still to cook, which I can't remember all of them right now. But pork belly was
sure.
That's been on the list for a long time.
Okay, pork belly. So my dad especially. So my company Forno Piombo, right, started it with my dad, and my dad's the engineer. He's the designer. He's he's the one who kind of designed the oven, and he's a huge proponent for using the oven in a versatile way. And so he's constantly innovating different accessories to support that. Because I think that's a big part of it, having the right tools, and you see that in your videos for sure. What we have now is we have an andiron. We have a stainless steel andiron, which it's the only one I've ever seen. The other ones, just the normal steel andirons, at least in restaurants, seem to go pretty quick. Like, the restaurant guys I talked to are like, yep, that's once a year we're replacing that. But then what he did that was super unique, I think, was his stainless steel grill set that's stackable, right? And so you've got this big stainless steel grill, kind of like the one you have, a little longer. And then you can put a smaller one stacked on top.
Oh, interesting.
So you get the 3 levels of cooking, right? You've got the top grill, you've got the bottom grill, and then you've got the floor. And it's great. Put a cast iron at the bottom, and you get the drip effect of whatever is on
that's
top.
Interesting.
So that's a cool one. And then we've had that out for a while. But the one we really we're trying to get down is a rotisserie, and we've got it really close. A rotisserie
that goes inside the wood oven.
Correct. So essentially, it runs, perpendicular to the open, or so front to back, right? It runs the entire depth, and then has the the motor, I should say, on the outside. And
then you put the fire either side.
You put
one side.
You could put it on the left and right. You could put it probably to one side since you're rotating, right? And we've also got like kind of a log holder that's meant to generate nice sized coals for stuff like that. But that one, so the first thing was getting like you got to get a really thick gauge bar in the middle so it doesn't sag when you do a lot of weight, and then it's protecting the motor so it doesn't get too hot. So we're close on that one, but we're building tools that support these crazy types of wood-fired oven endeavors is a big thing for us, and part of what we do, and
that's great.
So when that's ready, I'll send you one.
Okay.
You put it through the test. You have a Forno Bravo. Was it a kit?
Yes.
And you did the kit, or was it fully? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you build it yourself, or did you have a mason?
I designed it.
You designed it. Okay.
And we have a Spanish style house, so I wanted it to kind of match that style. And originally I thought of, the design would be you build a base and you pour your slab, and then you sit an oven on top, and you have insulation on the outside. But I wanted that shape to go all the way around. So I designed it. I know it's a big mass to it. And I found this incredible, I was so lucky, stonemason who we knew, and I showed him the plans, and he was very excited to build it. So he built the whole thing for us.
That's awesome.
And he just did an amazing job. And that's why, I have the plans for my oven. I send out to anybody who asks for it. Because it's one guy just emailed me his oven he just built. It's a replica of my oven. It just looks amazing. He's built this whole kitchen area, including a kind of an archway with a bell in it that I think he uses to call people to dinner when he's kept the food ready.
That's hilarious.
But we were just very lucky. It was to find. I wasn't that knowledgeable about wood ovens when I started, and the two main companies at the time in California were Fornabrava and Mugnaini, and I was just going waffling between the two, and then I was thinking, well, do I want to build a proper brick oven? Because I had this romantic notion of being looking inside and you see the brick but that was going to be time-consuming and expensive, and more I read into the refractory concrete ovens. Most restaurants have those.
They do.
They're extremely efficient, and I guess in a way it doesn't really matter whether it's a brick oven or refractory concrete, as long as it handles the heat well and has a good thermal mass, like you say, and the food that comes out is good. I mean, who cares what it's like,
Exactly, and it's all about heat. It's all about temperature. That's it, And then that's another thing when I speak to people who are just starting that kind of journey is, well, this is going to cook pizza better than my rock box, right? It's like, no, not necessarily, but the process of you cooking that pizza is probably going to be a lot more fun, a lot more creative, because, and that's the big thing when people talk about, because that's another big question I get is, what size oven do I need? It's a tough one to answer. And I usually tell people, a lot of people equate a bigger size oven with more volume of food. And that's true, but that's definitely half the story in my opinion. I think it's also that, the process of cooking the food, and it is a control thing, right? If you have a bigger oven, you have a bigger range to move your food, left, right, forward, back, where you want it to be for it to cook. And there's more skill involved, and there's the ability to build on that skill, right? In a smaller oven, like an uni, it'll cook a great pizza, but you just pull out and turn.
Yeah.
There is no, there's no thing for you to learn really, or it's limited. But then with a wood-fired oven, you can go up and down, side. You can, manage your floor. You can manage your fire, and that to me is a big part of the experience in cooking. Right? Is all the tools you have and the space to grow the skill is a big part of it to me.
Yeah. I think the little ovens like the Unis and the Rockbox, I think they're great introductory ovens. If you've not tried wood oven cooking yet, and maybe your budget doesn't reach as far as buying or building a wood oven, start with one of those small ovens and get that kind of experience. But I also think in size, I mean, mine's 42 inches, which
that's how big mine is. Yep, that's a good size. I love that size.
I guess I could get a bigger oven, but I find this is, I think, where thermal mass and insulation come in, because I see so many people online just have massive fires in their oven, and they're trying to cook, and they just give themselves room to get one pan in there. But I think if you have a good thermal mass, good insulation, once you've got the heat in the oven, it doesn't take a very big fire to maintain that.
Nope.
So you just keep a small fire going with a few logs and try and keep the floor as clean as possible. Place the fire, whether it's to the side or the back, and give yourself all that room to work with. And I think that's, again, is about learning to use your oven. And I think the instinct when people first have a wood oven is to have a big fire going. It's called a wood-fired oven, so you need a big fire going in it. but you really don't. You just need a small fire that gives you a lot of space to work with.
Agree. Yes. And that's why I'm a huge fan of the top down fire kind of, you know, strategy is the concept that one of the concepts behind that one is just that the fire is going to take the fuel it needs.
Yep.
No more. Right. And so that's a great way to set that tone of not loading logs in. If I've got a giant fire, you know, it might be because like I didn't give myself enough time and I'm just like, you know, right. Like, let's just get this thing hot. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, sure. An oven like ours can get up to temp, you know, 45, 60 minutes if you're really pushing it. But really for me, the most comfortable space is like, give me 2 hours so I can get it there, maintain it, have it fully saturate through the dome evenly, and then you're not fighting it, right? But I didn't know. It's interesting you have a 42. That's the exact size I have. And I am seeing some people get my 48 for their home, and you know, I think those are people who are just high usage and really wanting to push the limits on like the size of things that can fit in there, suckling pigs, right? Stuff like that. And sure, I think it can make sense sometimes for that. A lot of times they're getting the gas burner, which, you know, has enough BTUs to power the oven on its own, but it's more being used, I think, as a you know, not a substitute for wood, but just, you know, alongside wood to maybe because getting an oven that big up to 10, that's a lot of fuel. That's a lot of fuel. It's a lot of time. So I guess they cut the gap with that. But I 42, that's a great size for an avid home user. And then maybe the 36 inches, if it's a little bit more, just every once in a while, mostly pizza. That's kind of how I recommend the sizes.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, is there ever a cookbook? Is that in the cards? Would you ever do?
I am working on one.
You are?
Yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's really cool. I'll be the first one to get that.
But it's quite an undertaking, and it's, you know, shouldn't just be about recipes. It has to be about science and theory of wood-fired ovens, and so it's quite an undertaking. I'm not sure when I'll get it to come out, but I'm working on it.
That's exciting. I mean, I don't know. To me, at least, a book like that, it's been a while, I would think. Right? Is there anybody that? I mean, obviously, there's cookbooks come out all the time, pizza books, but like one that explores, you know, the science behind it. You know, I can't think of one that's come out recently, so that's really exciting. That sounds like a lot of work. Even thinking about what that book like hurts my brain. So But I think one of the things, I think it's great that you're doing that. And I think one of the reasons your videos are so successful and they resonate with people who like to cook with wood-fired ovens is what the recipes you cook, the method and the techniques, they're all things that other wood-fired oven owners want to know how to do. And it's like, you're thinking the same things they're thinking. So then suddenly a video comes out and it's like, yes, that's exactly what I want to learn more about. I had that with your video on just temperature. I can't remember which one it was. It was the cooking with retained heat. Right. And that was when I first emailed you when that one came out. Because I have, you know, every video that came out, I was kind of looking at it and I was like, these are great. And then that one came out and I'm like, this is the thing that like I've been trying to like get to people, like what it is and how it works. And I tried writing a blog about it and your video came out and I'm like, yes, that's what I was thinking. You know, so I think that's been crazy to just see. It's like you're in all of our heads, right? And you're like, I know what you guys, here we go. You know, this is the type of video you want. And so, yeah, that's been great.
Hello.
Oh, I think I lost you for a second.
Yeah.
Are we back? Okay, good. Yeah, so that's just one thing I've noticed, and I've heard from other people too. It's like, man, that's exactly what I wanted to learn more about, and so that's been, you know, so it's exciting to hear that's going to be coming to a book possibly in the future.
Good. I look forward to. Like I said, I don't know when it's going to come out.
Sure.
But at some point it will.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we'll wrap it up now.
Okay.
But man, this has been so much fun, Clive, and it's been so great speaking with you. I'd love to do it again, maybe after a few more episodes have come out. I'm really looking forward.
Sure. Anytime. Happy to. I really, I really appreciate if I did the videos and I put them out there, then nobody responded, I probably wouldn't do them anymore.
Sure.
But everybody's been extremely generous with their responses to the videos, and all I want to do is just convey what a great way of cooking the wood-fired oven is, and show my experience. And maybe I should do a video about all the disasters that I've had, just so people
best
feel
hits
like
reel.
we're all in the same boat. It doesn't always go as planned. But
I think there'd be good value in that video, because people could learn why not to do something. That's always the big thing. It's learning what you should do, but learning why you shouldn't do the thing that you shouldn't do. It's big, especially in wood-fired ovens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and even you mentioned the chocolate chip cookie episode. I just think, I try to think about, well, you've used the oven, you've created a meal, everybody's happy with with what you've fed them, and then what do you want to finish the meal with, and then chocolate chip cookies are just a really easy thing to do, just in the opening of the oven, while you're eating, you let the temperature drop a little bit to where you need it to be, and then just throw some chocolate chip cookies in there.
Being and that's a big part of it, being efficient with your heat. Like, hey, you've put all this fuel into this oven to get it hot. Use as much of it as you can. Yeah. And then use it in a way to make chocolate chip cookies on top of it. It's just a win-win, I love those people, please, you're going to cook what? Yeah. In there? Yeah. Okay, I got to see this, right? Yeah. And then it just tastes 10 times better because it was such a cool, it's got the wood-fired, feel to it. So very cool. Good. All right, Clive.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on, Tony. It's very nice to meet you, and I think we're just a part of a fantastic global community, because I get responses from all over the world from people who use the wood oven, and I just think there's this incredible community of people that want to share their experiences, share their food, and I really appreciate you having me on as a way for me to share, my enthusiasm for it, and I appreciate everything you do for the wood oven community.
Of course, thank you, and same to you. I mean, you put so much work into these videos on a number of different levels. And actually, I'd like to, before you leave, because the proceeds from your YouTube channel go to a foundation, right, or a charity.
World Central Kitchen. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well,
charity.
I think one of my, I have a few influences chef-wise, and one of them is Jose Andres. If you ever want to see anybody who has enthusiasm for their craft, you just watch him. Yeah. I mean, he's just...
I got to meet him. I got to meet him at Bottle Rock at Napa Music Festival this year, and he was lovely. And I have a picture of him, holding my peel in the oven, and he was great. He was hilarious, and he was having a good time.
But he's also just an incredible human being and humanitarian, and what he does, is take what his knowledge and his skill, how can he apply that to things that are going wrong in the world and helping people? And I just really admire him for what he does. So I thought, well, the best way to support was, to give the proceeds, the profits from the videos that I get from YouTube to him.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so that's Jose Andres World Central Kitchen.
World Central Kitchen, yeah.
Yep. And awesome. Okay, Clive, take care. Thank you so
Tony,
much.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to all the videos, and again, thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.